Hi and welcome to Paints and Glitter. My name is Raquel and I welcome you to my channel. Today's video is a two-part series and this is the second part regarding the Treasured Dreams My Memory book die set from Tonic Studios. I'll be sharing with you a process video on how I have put this mini album together using some of these dies. As you can tell, there are lots of pieces added to this die set. There's this little piece here that creates an interactive page. There are layers, there are tags, there are 3 sizes of a mini album that you can create. It's very nice and interactive, and there's also a pop-up page that you can create. I've not added this to this particular book, but I do have another video in which I share a tutorial and a sample of how you can use it. And here are the pieces that you would use for that interactive page, along with other sentiments, lots of different embellishments that you can create. For this mini album, I'll be using this piece here. It creates the second to largest mini album of this set, and the mini album has a spine that will be 3 inches tall. So I will be using that larger piece to cut out all of my pages and covers, and of course you can use any of the other pieces that you find here to embellish your book, add different interactive pieces. There are hole reinforcers should you choose to go that route, little tabs that you can add to it, just a lot of fun and different elements. This set, by the way, is currently sold out in the US website. However, if you visit using my link, you can definitely ask to have yourself be notified if this comes back into stock, and if it's reproduced, then you'll get your hands on it. So let's begin here. I'm going to suggest that you cut for both your front and back covers using the heaviest cardstock that you may have. I always recommend 110 pound at least. The pieces that you'll use for your cover, of course. Now I'm showing you here the height of that piece here, which will create the hinges of all of your pages, as well as the spine of your mini album, is important. You're going to use that measurement throughout, so that is a total of 3 inches tall. But again, you want to use your heaviest paper, which is 300 GSM or 110 pound for your covers. Cut 4 of those. And then for the spine of this mini album, I actually created one that was a little large. But if you just want to use a regular size spine for the pages, then here's a suggestion. Cut your paper a little bit shorter than the height, which I had explained was 3 inches tall. So you can definitely cut that down to 2 7/8 inches tall, and then start scoring the strip of paper 1/4 inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches, 2 1/4 inches, 2 3/4 inches, 3 inches, 3.5 inches, 4 inches, and 4 1/4. Now you're watching me here fold the paper, and what I'm explaining is that that first fold, if you choose to make it 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, that's really up to you. It depends on the size of the spine that you like. The rest of them can be exactly what I explained, because what it's going to allow you to do is to create the hinges where you will be placing the pages of your mini album. Now, you're going to fold these once you score it all as a valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold, valley fold, mountain fold, valley, valley, mountain fold, valley. So that's going to end up giving you a strip of paper that is, once it's completely scored, it'll measure about 4 1/4 inches by 2 7/8 inch tall. And once you have all of your fold lines and everything, you're going to see me flip this paper around and add the adhesive. But of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, or you can play the video in a slower rate if you need to. But I do have several tutorials sharing with you how to make your spines, or you can definitely use any one of the keepsake dies that come with the Tonic Studios dies that you can use to cut out your spine. I just happened to have my paper out and my scoreboard, so I did it manually. Now here I'm cutting it down because I didn't need the rest of that paper, and you're seeing me fold the mountain folds. which are only 3 in this case because I only created 3, what will be 3 hinges. Now later in the video you're going to see that my spine was actually larger than what I even needed, but off camera I went ahead and added more pages. But if you want 3 pages, you can follow the measurements that I gave, and you can certainly add more or less. It all depends on how big you want your book to be, how many pictures you intend to add, and how thick you want your pages to be as well, because depending on how many embellishments you like to add to your book, you may want a little more space between your pages. So here I'm folding and reinforcing the folds. That's very important when you're going to add a spine to a mini album, because this is going to get the most use of all of your pages, going back and forth. I do recommend a 65-pound or 80-pound weight piece of paper for this, not the 300 GSM, for the simple reason that the paper may crack. And once I've added all of my adhesive to the back, there you see the 3 mountain folds that are going to be the 3 hinges, and I'm going to apply this piece to what will be the spine of my book. And again, you can make it longer, you can add more or less, but here's the piece of paper onto which I'm going to adhere both the front and back covers of my book. Now, as I said before, this piece of paper is about 2 7/8 inches tall. I made it that height so that it doesn't make my pages kind of stick out from the spine of the book. So I happen to cut mine to 3 by 3 inches, which again is a little bit bigger than you would need. But here I'm folding and reinforcing the fold of what will be the cover and the back of my mini album. That does cut with a nice little notch that you can use as your gauge there with the dies. And I'm just cutting away a tiny little sliver in about a 45-degree angle there, and then adding this to that 3 by 3 piece of paper. And then all I have to do is butt it up with each other and go ahead and burnish that paper, of course, and apply those pieces to that base. And there I have the cover of my book. What I do is that I fold the papers back and forth. I make sure that I burnish them really nicely so that way my book doesn't have any issues opening and closing. And there you go. So what's left to do now, of course, is to reinforce these covers. I go ahead and add yet another piece of 110-pound cardstock to the back of that cover, and I adhere it just like so. And because this is a shaped mini album, it's important that you measure it and remove any paper that might impede your book from folding. So to reinforce that spine, I cut yet another piece of paper and laid it right on top. Now this is completely optional. I just like my books to be sturdy, and that's why I added that. And of course that piece can be nice and heavy. So here you see the spine, what will be the hinges, of course, and you can tell that I added it very close to what will be the front cover, and I have a big space left there. So I ended up off camera again adding more pages to this, but you can definitely use the same method to create any one of the mini albums from Tonic Studios. And if they are shaped, then you just remove the portion that would make it stick out from the book, if you see me measuring there. And now all you have to do is line these up with those hinges that you created, adding a little bit of glue as you see me doing here, butt it right up to that hinge, and then fold the hinge toward the paper. And that's important also. So if you see there, I make sure that it's the correct measurement from the top to the bottom, and then the rest is easy peasy. It's just a matter of lining up your pages with the previous one. I double check, of course, before that glue is dry, and then I add my hinge to the page. And you don't need a whole lot of glue if you're using the deluxe adhesive from Tonic Studios. A little bit goes a long way. Now here, for the back of what will be my front page, or my first page I should say, I'm going to create a little bit of a pocket. So if you see me here, I'm not adding adhesive to that entire piece of paper. I'm leaving a little bit of a gap, and that's going to allow me to have a pocket once that's nice and dry. And then I'm moving on to the second page, and here I did add glue on the entire perimeter and base of that page. All I had to do was match it up with the one I had already placed on my book, and I already have 2 pages here. Now for the third one, here's another option. I went ahead and used smaller pieces of paper that I had cut with the smaller dies that come in the set, and I created a smaller page. So again, it doesn't really matter so long as that little spine piece is not poking out of the pages, so you can cut it down slightly. And here I just gave myself another option of a style of page. So I'm now going to be matting this mini album. I did cut some decorative papers with the same dies. I just cut away the pieces that I didn't need, and I wanted the front to be super shabby, so I did take a piece of leftover foam from a different project. I used that as a dimensional piece, if you will, and that's how I ended up decorating the front. And then here I'm using yet another piece of really adorable shabby paper for the back. And what I like to do is to use my matting layers first and then go page by page, kind of planning out the book. In this mini album set, there is one element that you can use that's interactive, and essentially it's a page, but it has these 2 little hinges. So you can reinforce those folds. Of course, it gives you the guide. And what I've done is that on the base of my paper, I've added a magnet because I want my page to be able to open and close. I added my matting layer, and now I placed adhesive on one of those hinges. And you will see here that I also placed my second magnet, and then I hide that magnet with the decorative piece of paper right on top. Now you see how that opens. I want to cover that little hinge, so I just used a smaller piece of paper there that's also die cut in the same shape, and I'm decorating those layers. And this gives you the option to continue that page, so making sure that I cut the paper down to match the previous page there, I added yet another little flap, and I did reinforce it because I was using I think it was 80-pound paper here. So you have lots of options, but I do like to have a nice finished book. So if I see a raw edge, then I cover it up with another decorative piece of paper. Now here I'm hiding yet another magnet. So I did use decorative paper. And now that little interactive page is going to be able to open and close very nicely. And here's the first ticket that I'll be using in this book. And if you haven't seen that video, I will be linking it down below so that you get to see exactly how I made that embellishment using the Ticket and Trinkets die set that coordinates with this. And now I'm moving on to the second page in this mini album. Here I decided to cut the page in half, or the matting layer, and you're going to see me apply this to the page so that I can create a half pocket. This is quite a popular way to use these dies, and it's very effective and very pretty because you can definitely add pictures that are not cut to the same shape of the page but will fit inside of the little pockets. And what I did here was that I created a little band there to kind of make that page stand out a little bit more. And there you see how it does create that pocket. And on that little band, I also used foam and popped up yet another ticket. So it is a cluster, but I'm just calling them tickets. And again, on the other video that I'll link, you'll get to see exactly how I made them. So now I'm matting the back of the second page. And on here, I just created a little tuck spot using 2 of the other die cuts. So you see me adding adhesive only to the very bottom portion of that. And that will allow me to have quite a bit of room actually back there so I can add more embellishments or pictures. But I did cut out a strip of paper and created a little flag. But because my page is round, or my little element there is round, then I just place my piece of paper on top, and then you see me using the scissors to trim away the portion that didn't match up. And now I'm adding yet another layer from the Ticket and Trinkets die set to decorate this. Now that other die set also comes with little tags. I'll be using that throughout this mini album as well. And because it's shabby, I decided to go with twine. So I just looped some little pieces of twine on the tags, and then here you see me adding a little flowers as well. And that page is now complete. Now for the opposing page, and this is the one that I had added that's a little bit shorter, I actually took some gorgeous paper here that I dry embossed with a 3D embossing folder. You saw me hiding a magnet right on the base, and this is going to go right on top. And I'm going to use yet another one of those interactive pages that comes with the die set. I reinforce the folds. You see me doing that there. And now I'm actually tucking that into the side because that embossed paper was actually not big enough to cover the entire base, but I used that to my advantage, and I created a little tuck spot to decorate that interactive page. And then on top, what you see me doing is embellishing this with yet more tickets. And what I did this time was that I cut the base out of vellum and then the little layers out of decorative paper. So there are a lot of different options and different ways in which you can use these dies. I mean, the sky's the limit. You use whichever materials you enjoy most. I happen to prefer to use vellum in just about all of my projects. And there you see the little pocket that I was able to create. Now for the interior portion of that pocket or interactive page, I wanted to make sure that I finished it, and I added a smaller piece here, adhered it right to that hinge, and I hid the magnet this time underneath the matting layer. So I placed my magnet there because I know that that matches up with the one that's hiding behind the embossed paper. And that's kind of like a reverse way of sticking paper, I guess is what I would call it. But again, I like my pages to be interactive, but I don't like them kind of flapping back and forth. So that's why I like to add my magnets. And here I just added a little key that has a heart shape that's super adorable, and that does come with the dice set. I believe it's the Ticket and Trinkets one as well. So for the next page, what I decided to do was to use some parchment paper that I have, or vellum. It's actually a thicker type of vellum. It happens to have almost like a rainbow effect because of the colors, and I love that paper. So I did take stamps from the Ticket and Trinkets Stamps and Dies, and I used Versamark ink, which is clear, and I also used some really adorable embossing powder that I have. It's Frontage, that's what it is. And I heat embossed it, and there you see. It says something about big band. It's supposed to be like a concert ticket. So that is one option that you have if you have the set. And then I took another stamp from that same collection. It has flowers on it, and all I did was heat emboss this as well on the bottom portion of that ticket. And there you see it has like little leaves and flowers, and it just looks delicate and pretty, and I did use that to embellish the following page. Now you see here how there's a magnet. I had added the layer, but I didn't adhere the entire page, and so that allowed me to create a pocket. And now I am adhering the entire matting layer. And for what I'm going to add here to embellish this page, as you see there, I cut away the border of that die cut, and then I use my Tim Holtz scissors to really shabby that up. And it's just going to create a little tuck spot, but it's a super simple way to add just another element to your page where you can embellishment but also have plenty of room for your pictures. And there you see those vellum pieces. I did cut out several and only embossed one. but because it's vellum, it layers beautifully, and then you get to see a little bit more of that color, but it doesn't create a lot of bulk, and that's what I like about that type of medium. Now, moving on to, this is the spine of the book. So this is the outer portion of this book. What I did is that I took yet another piece of paper that I had dry embossed with a 3D embossing folder, and I wanted it to match the colors of the mini album. So I did take a very light blue ink from Catherine Pooler, and I also used some embellishment mousse from Tonic Studios, and this is available in several different colors, so you use whichever one will match your project. And with a small brush, I'm adding it, and you get to see there the pearlescent finish and the texture of that paper. It looked very rich and very beautiful. I did shabby the edges of that as well. And then I'm adding a very generous portion of adhesive because this paper is undulated now, you know, it has the crevices and all that. So I wanted to make sure that that would stick very nicely. And for the edges, because I don't want to leave a raw edge on a mini album, then I decided to go into my drawer where I have my laces. I picked a few out that I thought would play nicely with this project, and I simply have embellished the outer portion of this book with different ones that I thought would match, and they all have that floral kind of look to them as well, so they really ended up adding quite a bit of texture to this book, and that's another thing that I really enjoy. Now, using the Ticket and Trinkets die set, there are some pieces that are meant to be used with ribbons or laces that you can add to your projects, and I thought those were really fun. So here you see me using one, and what I'm doing is that I'm adding the closure to this mini album using seam binding. So I just picked a place there where they would look cute, and I adhered the seam binding inside of that little paper that I had colored using Aquaflow pens. You see me using hot glue there. It folds over, it creates almost like a little triangle. And then I was able to add my seam binding to the outer portion of the book. And I did reinforce that because it was moving a little bit too much. But now I'm going to be able to close my book, and I tend to measure it out first to make sure I have plenty of seam binding for a bow, and then I cut away the excess. But here I kind of moved it a little bit, made sure it was in the correct position. And then I'm pulling this forward on the front of the book and on the back, and adding just a little dab of glue to make sure that that seam binding meets. And that way it looks cohesive both on the front and the back. And just a little drop of glue there. I'm allowing it to still be nice and crinkly. And now I'm adding yet more decorative elements to the cover here, and also the third ticket that I had made using the Ticket and Trinkets dies that I shared in the first video. And that was the one that I added the butterfly to and the little flowers. And now I'm making a double bow with some twine because I'm going to add yet another little tag to this cover, and this one is the one that has a heart shape. It also comes with a little layering shape that's so pretty. But in the end of this video, what you're going to see are the pictures, and that way you will get to see how I actually finished this book. I do hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial, that it is useful to you. Please feel free to leave me a comment, thumbs up, and let me know what you think of it. I hope that this has been helpful to you, so that way you get out your dies and your stamps and inks and all that good stuff, and just have some fun playing along. I thoroughly enjoy making mini albums. It is my favorite type of craft, and this is why I enjoy also sharing the videos with you. And as I always say, I hope that you can be inspired and be blessed, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.